Hey guys, as much as we'd like to be out exploring today, it's going to be a garage day. I got to make some progress on the old XJ here. Today we're going to try to raise it a couple inches. I've got parts to try to replicate the factory upcountry package. It was 1.75 inches or so above stock height. It might give us a little more just because these springs are probably saggy. And then we've got these General Grabber ATs and a 30 by 950 we're going to put on. Parts we're going to install are these Moog variable rate tough coil springs, CC782's part number. We've got a set of Daystar extended bump stops to try to keep from smashing the fenders, and heavy metal suspensions, Adleaf kit. Never heard of them, but had fairly good reviews, and it has the little Teflon bumpers that a lot of them didn't have, because we're hoping for a quiet, squeak-free ride on this one. This Jeep had the factory lug nuts on it that have a stainless cap over a steel lug nut, and the stainless cap was missing on the front, so the 3/4 socket doesn't fit correctly anymore, and an 18 millimeter did actually work and took them off. I'm going to replace them with just a standard one-piece nut, so I don't have to worry about it again. So usually not a whole lot to swap in front springs on these. I've most of the time been able to get them in without a spring compressor if it'll droop enough. I'm going to go ahead and completely remove the shocks because I have different ones, and dropping or disconnecting the sway bar end link helps it to droop more. This one's already broke off, so I'm halfway done. And I've marked all 4 corners, well, actually front and rear, and the front bumper with the original height, and I'll remeasure it with the new springs. It'll probably settle a little bit over time, but it'll give us an idea. For the sway bar end link I just took off, if you're going to remove that, you will need a T55 Torx and an 18 millimeter socket. For some reason, I know a lot of the cheaper sets don't come with an 18, so make sure you have an 18. All right, I went ahead and pulled the shock and the end link off the other side. Took the bolts out of the spring retainers on both sides, and actually threw a floor jack and jacked the other side up a little bit, and that actually pushes this side down extra. It's actually off the seat up here, so if I can just pry it enough to get over that spring pocket, I think we'll be good to go. The new spring going in might be a totally different ball game. I still might need to compress it, but we'll try it out. It's been a while. I forgot I had to unscrew this bump stop here, so we'll do that, and I think this one will be out. Just threaded there. I'm going to use a pipe wrench and see if I can. Yeah, that's going to come right off. Hopefully, this being a high desert truck, nothing's rusty. Actually, it slipped out, but we're going to have to pull that off to put our extensions on anyway. The uninstalled height's only about a 1/2 inch taller on the new spring, so it'll be interesting to see how it works out. The new spring, though, is a little bigger in diameter. It's about 0.58 versus about 0.53 and change on the old spring, so it's probably going to be a bit stiffer and hopefully a little taller. Excuse my messy work area. This is Heather's outdoor metal art building area, but I forgot how hard it is to get these rubber bushings out of the cup on these. The later ones I think just kind of pop out, but the early one is bonded in there, and I'll show you that thing's not going anywhere. I tried prying on it with an old screwdriver, and that didn't do a dang thing. And then I twisted the heck out of it, yanked on it, and starting to tear in half, but it's still firmly attached to the bottom. So I'm going to try heating it up with a MAP gas torch and see if I can get it to release this bond, or I can get this stubborn thing out of here. If somebody makes a complete replacement setup where you don't have to do this, it'd probably be worth the extra money. Okay, that was the ticket. I just heated the bottom up with a MAP gas torch and then unscrewed it and it popped right out. All right, guys, more fun times with aftermarket parts, but doing some research, apparently Daystar doesn't know what years take which bump stops, even though when I looked at the catalog, it only showed one number. There's a 1.5 inch or a 2 inch diameter cup. And most people in the forums, because apparently everybody's ran into this by now, just tried to change them anyway and got the wrong ones. They thought that the later models, like 97-ish, took 2 inch, but this 89 had a 2 inch. I've got a really, really rusty 1990 out in the yard for parts, and luckily it's got a different bump stop made out of some kind of really brittle, broken down material. So I was able to break it off enough that I could squeeze it through the spring without having to pull the whole coil out just to get it. So I'm going to get the other one out and get this crap cleaned out of here and see if I can use those. And when I say really rusty, this is the really rusty. This thing lives right by the ocean and got driven on the beach, and it's a pile. But I will put in the description a link to both the different Daystar bushings and the size, because on their catalog it doesn't even mention the size. So you really got to do your research ahead of time to get the right thing. So about a half an hour and a tetanus shot later, I got the bump stops off the parts rig. Here are, to save you the same trouble, in the middle of this here is about 1 3/4 for the one that takes the 1.5 inch bushing, and it's about 2 1/4 in the center area for the one that takes the 2 inch bushing. I think the BK is just the color, so if you want red or something, that part's probably different. But so hopefully that will save you from the same headache as I had to go through. I probably would have just thrown the old one on if I didn't screw it all up taking it apart. So here we go. All right, got one of them trimmed down and pushed into place. Definitely turned out to be more of a hassle than I anticipated, just because I had the wrong size and had to go rob it off the other rig, but at least I'll be able to get it back together today. I have found in the past that leaving the bump stop out until you get the spring makes it easier to slide up into place here. Usually just kind of stick it in the coil, and then you can even, wrap a piece of tape or a zip tie or something to hold up here out of your. And then once you get that coil in place, then you can get it where it goes. Okay, got that one in. All right, that went pretty good. All I need to do is tighten up shock bolts and inlink bolts, and I'll move on to the Adelaide from the rear. I think I spent about as much time screwing off those bump stops as I did doing the whole thing. All right, back up in the shop. It's another day, getting ready to replace the Adelaide, or add the Adelaide on the passenger side. I already did the other side, so we're gonna zip off the shock, pull off the spring new bolts, and then we'll get the axle drop down and get that leaf worked into place. And we'll get to the center bolt pin. The kit came with the wrong ones. They're too big in diameter unless you want to drill your leaf springs, which I didn't feel like doing, so I'll show you the solution I came up with for that. All right, so leaf spring center pin, the one that came in the kit is a generic kit, you know, and it's too large of a diameter of bolt and the head's too big in diameter. So here's the old bolt. Now it's too short to go through all the leaves with the add a leaf in there. So I went to Ace and found this metric socket head bolt, and it is very close to the perfect diameter for the pin. And for some reason, the metric one had a larger head than the standard one, so it was closer to being correct. And I already put it in on the other side, worked fine. Normally these are long enough, you can cinch all the leaves together and then cut it off. So what I ended up doing on the other side is just using a regular bolt, pulling it all together, and then throwing a couple C-clamps on there, removing the bolt, and then putting in the center pin bolt, which worked fine. If you try calling AutoZone and O'Reilly's, they're probably not gonna know what a leaf spring center pin is, so that's why I went this direction. I wanna get this thing done. The front spring clamp here is kind of in the way where the add a leaf's gonna go. And most vehicles I own didn't even have this extra one here, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off. And if there is a problem later with the springs twisting out of place or something, I can certainly get an aftermarket one and add in there, but the Comanche's been like that for 20 years or so and haven't had an issue, so I think it'll be fine. So I'll go ahead and I'll get my longer bolt through there and get that torqued up, put the clamps on, hold it in place, and swap it up to the center pin. And I'm going to speed it up because you probably don't want to see it all in slow-mo. You'll have to excuse the noise. I'm in a metal building and it's raining like always here. And anyway, we got the center pin in, add a leaf in. It is significantly thicker than the stock springs, so hopefully it doesn't give us too much lift or too rough of a ride. Quite a few people, according to the Amazon reviews, had used these in the XJ and were happy with the results. If we need to, we can always pull out this bottom leaf later if it's too high or too stiff, but fingers crossed it'll be good. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw it back together. I did use the stock U-bolts on the other side. There's just enough thread to be safe. I know some people say not to reuse U-bolts, but I've actually had way better luck reusing factory U-bolts than buying Chinese aftermarket like the ones they sell at AutoZone and O'Reilly's and such. I've had a couple of those strip out before they got to the specified torque, and I've never had a problem with the OEM, so we're sticking with those. All right, it was sitting way too high in the back. I know it's gonna settle, but it was still excessively high. So I pulled the stock lower spring out and left add a leaf in. And now we're at 3 3/4 over what I measured stock, and I'm sure it's going to settle, and I'm hoping it settles about 1 or 1.5 inches. So I will update you later in the comments and let you know how it turned out. So here's what we ended up with after I took the lower stock spring out.
So this is the finished result with our General Grabber 30 by 950s. If you'd like to see how we restored these wheels, check out our video in the link below.